I don't know if should I use the gavel. So, welcome to the City of Maplewood Housing and Economic Development Commission meeting for Thursday, October 21st. I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order, and we will start with a roll call. And let's just start from Sarah's side, and we'll go over. So, Sarah here. We've got Bao, Mark, and Daryl.
Here.
All right. So we have 4 commissioners, which gives us a quorum. So with that, we can actually move to approval of agenda. And by the way, Sarah, did you get the new agenda? You should have a new agenda sitting in front of you, I believe. Okay. So we're going to approve the agenda that Jeff gave us. And with that, are there any additions, changes, notes on the agenda? Seeing none, I'll look for a motion to approve the agenda as presented. Go ahead, you can kick us off.
I think.
Oh, Sarah, were you making the motion? Okay, so Sarah has made a motion to approve the agenda as presented. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
And Daryl has seconded, so I took the old agenda. I'm taking these out of order. Sorry, Jeff. So we've got a motion, a second on the agenda. All those in favor of approving the agenda as presented signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Hearing none, the motion passes ayes all. Okay, and I was using the old agenda to approve the new one, so we are going to take a backtrack here and go from item 4 back to item 3. And Jeff, I believe that goes to you.
Sure. Thank you, Chair and Commission. So it is customary that when we get new boards and commission members, we swear them in to that individual board. And since this is our first in-person meeting, we'll take the opportunity to swear in both Bao and Sarah into their positions. So we'll start, Bao, with you. I think it's in your packet if you want to follow along. Otherwise, it's in their revised packet there in front of you. Do you see it? Okay.
Yeah, you've got it.
So you just raise your right hand. I, Bao Vang, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and of the State of Minnesota and faithfully discharge the duties of Commission Member on the Housing and Economic Development Commission of the City of Maplewood in the County of Ramsey and the State of Minnesota to the best of my judgment and ability. So help me God. And Chair, next we'll do Sarah. So Sarah, if you can just raise your right hand. I, Sarah Burdash, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and of the State of Minnesota and faithfully discharge the duties of Commission Member on the Housing and Economic Development Commission of the City of Maplewood in the County of Ramsey and the State of Minnesota to the best of my judgment and ability. So help me God. Thank you. It is now official.
So welcome aboard again. All right. With that item, we will move to the approval of minutes. And the first set we're going to approve are for the regular meeting, April 15th. And I was not at that one, but I can ask you if there are any changes, modifications you see to it? No? Okay, I will look for a motion to approve the minutes as presented for the April 15th meeting. Do I have a motion? Okay, I'll give that one to to Bao. And do we have a second? And we have a second for Sarah. Okay, so with a motion and a second, we'll go all of those who are comfortable approving the minutes for the April 15th meeting signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed and abstentions, and I will abstain. That is 3-1. That is approved. So we have the approval of minutes complete for the regular meeting, and then we're going to look for the joint meeting. And that is the special meeting minutes in your packet. And again, any changes, corrections, updates? Seeing none, I'll look for a motion to approve the special meeting minutes. So we've got a motion from Sarah and a second from Bao. And with that, all in favor of approving the special meeting minutes as presented signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions?
I will abstain. I wasn't present for that one.
Sorry, Daryl has abstained. That's still 3-1. That motion is approved. Those minutes are approved. So with that, we will move on to new business. And Jeff, I'll hand it to you for the resolution of appreciation.
Thank you, Chair. So we did add this to the agenda. Dennis Unger, who has served on the commission for a long time, since 2011, was his position was up, and he decided to not go for reappointment. And so it's customary for all boards and commissions. We've included before you today just a resolution of appreciation for Dennis and his 10 years of service on the Housing and Economic Development Commission. And we would recommend that you review that and recommend that the council adopt that at their meeting on November 8th.
Honestly, trying to get the front and back page stuff figured out here right now. Okay, there it is. Jeff, do you, I'm trying to remember, it's been a while. Do you want me to read this, or do you read it, or to get it into the record? Or?
Either or. It's either fine with me.
It's only 4 pages. I'll go. No. It's short. Sorry. I'm going to go ahead and read it just to get it on the record for Dennis, because he was with us for quite a while. So, whereas Dennis Unger has been a member of the Maplewood Housing and Economic Development Commission for 10 years, serving from July of 2011 to September of 2021, and whereas the Housing and Economic Development Commission and the City Council appreciate his experience, insights, and good judgment, and whereas Mr. Unger has freely given of his time and energy without compensation for the betterment of the city of Maplewood, and whereas Mr. Unger has shown dedication to his duties and has consistently contributed his leadership and efforts to the benefits of the city, now therefore it is hereby resolved for and on behalf of the city of Maplewood, Minnesota, and its citizens that Dennis Unger is hereby extended our gratitude and appreciation for his dedicated service. So, thank you, Dennis, for all you did for us. We honestly do appreciate it. With that, we do need a motion on that, I believe. So, I will ask if we have a motion to approve the resolution of appreciation.
I move.
We have a motion from Daryl, and do we have a second? We have a second from Bao with our motion and second. All of those in favor of approving, adopting the resolution of appreciation signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Hearing none, the resolution is approved. Ayes all. Okay. So we will move on to item 2, the tax increment financing. Jeff.
Thank you, Chair. So we're bringing this application for a new tax increment district to the Housing and Economic Development Commission just for review and comment and answer any questions that you may have of it. I'll provide a little bit of background on the site and the agreement that's before you, and ultimately that'll be going to the Economic Development Authority and the City Council at their meetings next Monday, the 25th of October. So the site is down in the south leg of Maplewood. It's at the intersection of London Lane and Lower Afton Road. It's a former fire station site. You're probably familiar with it. It's been owned by the city for a long time, but it was ceased to be used as a fire station some time ago, and the city has been actively looking to sell the property for future development. And in the interim period, there was some business, like some small businesses that leased some of the space in the building, but that lease has been terminated, and so the building's been vacant for at least a year as we've worked through the development options for the site. In conversations with the council and the EDA about the property, they've established a number of priorities for it. I would tell you the number one priority is selling the land. That's always been a strong priority. The funding from the sale proceeds is dedicated to be used for the construction of the new North Fire Station at Hazelwood and C. And so on that, they've also prioritized a quick closing on the property. And then in terms of the project itself, they were looking for a project that's consistent with the 2040 comp plan, which guides the property for high-density residential use, as well as a project that would support some of the city's housing goals in that plan. And then in conversations about the site and any sort of ask for tax increment assistance, the council and EDA have articulated that if there is that ask, that it should be used to support affordable housing within the project itself. Just a quick overview of some of the housing goals in Maplewood. I won't go through the whole housing plan within the comp plan, but this is just a summary of the new affordable housing units. Our comp plan has strong support for the creation of new affordable housing units in Maplewood and establishes goals in the 10-year period from 2021 to 2030 for that new unit creation. And the goal is for 510 total units in that 10-year period. And you can see the breakdown there of number of units at the different income levels. Back in March of this year, we issued a solicitation of offers for the property and worked with the council and some of their discussions to establish these 6 priorities or 6 kind of ranking criteria for the offers that were considered by the city. So first, as I mentioned, is consistency with the comp plan, both the land use and housing and economic development goals. The second priority was the ability of the developer to perform. It's just demonstrated by similar projects in the region and in our market. Certainly the council, in being a steward of the asset, was also prioritizing the price and closing date. And then the second criteria were that certainly providing for affordable housing that meets the greatest level of affordability that is financially feasible for the project, and that be weighed against any sort of amount and length of tax increment that's requested as part of that application. So based on the review of those offers, the city did enter into a purchase agreement with Real Estate Equities, and I won't go through these, I think these were included in your packet, but just these are the overview of the terms of that purchase agreement, which we are still in with the development group. So the project that Real Estate Equities is proposing, it's a complete redevelopment of the site. They would obviously tear down the existing building, and then in its place on that site would be a new 3-story housing project built with 148 total units within that building. The breakdown of the units, 60%, or that number's wrong. No, that's right. 60 units would be available at 60% of area median income. 52 of the units would be available at 80% of area median income, and then 36 of the units would be not income restricted or would be market rate units. This was the breakdown that was included in the application submittal, and I think one of the strengths when the EDA and council looked at this was the mix of size of units as well. The first block there are the 60% AMI units, and you can see there's a good mix of 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, and 3-bedroom units. So we're getting a good mix of unit sizes. And then you can see the breakdown also of the 80% AMI at 1 and 2 bedrooms, and then also including the 1 and 2 bedrooms for the market rate units. So just a quick overview of tax increment financing for the commission. The city is always, not always, but is historically has a number of tax increment districts. There are 13 tax increment districts throughout the city, dating back through the past number of years. But it's the new enabling resolution back in 2019 that now grants the EDA the authority to use tax increment to support some of the city's public purpose goals. It's a tool that takes advantage of the increase in property taxes that result from development. So that's where the financing source is for tax increment. And it's essentially the base value or the existing value of the property is frozen, and that continues to pay taxes that go to the general taxing jurisdictions. But it's the additional taxes that are generated from the development itself that are then captured to pay for some of the project costs associated with that development. And then the goals can vary based on the type of district and certainly the EDA's goals, but typically the standard ones are creation of tax base, redevelopment, affordable housing goals, or job creation. And the important piece on tax increment is that it has to meet a but-for test, and that's but for the use of the financing assistance from the city, the project wouldn't happen. So the project wouldn't move forward without the assistance from the city. So that's just a very quick overview of tax increment financing itself. To talk a little bit about the agreement that's been drafted between the EDA ultimately and the developer is that we are providing the tax increment to support those 60 units at 60% of the area median income. It'd be issued on a note, a pay-as-you-go note. This is a revision with the final version from your packet, but you can see the principal amount there is just over $2.2 million. That amount is issued for qualifying costs, which can include site acquisition, any sort of public infrastructure that's built, site preparation, the site improvements themselves. All of that, I will tell you, will add up to much more than $2.2 million. So we're still capped at that $2.2 million principal amount that the EDA would issue the note at. And then to pay on that note over time, we would pledge the future tax increment that's generated by the project to repay not only the principal but also the accrued interest on that note. And then once we got to that principal amount or a maximum term of 10 years, whichever happens first, then the agreement would be satisfied and would be completed. As part of the project, the developer would pay the customary park dedication fees, and then included as the ensuring we're getting the affordable housing units, there would be a restrictive covenant that's filed in the chain of title on the property that requires that 60 of those units be rented to families that meet 60% of the area median income and provide reporting back to the city on an annual basis of meeting that requirement. And this would be, as I mentioned, filed on the title of the property, and it would be in place during the duration of the 10-year TIF note. So we are the developer, and the development group is here today if you have questions about the project, but we're looking for a motion from the HEDC to recommend that the EDA approve the contract for private development with the REE Maplewood Apartments LLC. So with that, Chair, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. So commissioners, any questions for Jeff or for the developers? You know, I have some. Go for it, Daryl.
I do have a couple, and it's probably in here. This is one building, correct? So we're going to restrict 60 units of 148?
Correct.
And I see that we're restricting income. Are there any rent restrictions or any limit on rent?
Yeah. So it gets funneled down to, there's a specific allocation of what those rents are, which are based on the area, the 60% area median income. So I think on my slide, and include those rents.
Okay, there you go. Great. And I was just curious, what's the approximate total development cost to this building?
It's 33.5 million.
Yeah, come on.
Hi, Alex Bazan's development partner with Real Estate Equities. So the budgeted total development cost for the project is $33,500,000.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure.
Those are my initial questions.
Is yours? Any questions? Okay. So I've got a few, and then if you come up with some others, we can keep going. So I'm gonna start with a comment to sort of frame in my questions, and we've had a number of TIF districts come through our commission before, and I'm generally not a big fan of TIF districts, but there are a couple things here that make me amenable to that. The first one is it's a 10-year, not a full 25-year. That makes it that makes me feel much better. We're going to get that back quicker. The other item that I'm comfortable with, but I want to have an understanding of, is site improvements. One of the challenges with that property in the past has been its proximity to the pipeline, as well as its prior uses as a fire station and maybe potential for some soil remediation in that. Is site improvement, does this help them with those items?
Yeah, Chair, those would all be eligible costs of the project for tax increment reimbursement.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you have a sort of a plat of what that might look like, where the building's placement on the property, or?
I do. Give me 1 minute.
I'll let you search for that. I'll ask another question. And Jeff, while you're looking for that, the last question I have is the commitment to the 60 units at 60% market rate. What happens if they don't meet that? And when is the starting line for that? Do they need to have those units occupied within 3 months, a year? What is the start for that? See, and I've got him multitasking now. He's trying to find the diagram and answer questions. Oh, okay.
You see that?
Yep, I do. That's very helpful. So we're not building any new entrances onto Lower Afton, or we're basically keeping the same street structure. It's just entrances onto London.
I'm sorry. Now I was preparing for your second question. So can you say it again?
Okay, so no, I was just looking at it going, this is what I was looking for. There are no new entrances onto Lower Afton. We're using the existing streets, just retaining entrances onto London Lane.
Chair, that's correct.
Okay. So I'll let you think about the other one then, and I'll shut up for a bit.
Yeah, on the second question, there's kind of two components of it. One, how quickly do they have to rent the units, right?
Right.
To households meeting that income. They have to be set aside or leased or remain vacant and available for families or households that are meeting that income threshold. They can probably speak more specifically to it. It's unusual for not to be a high demand for those units, so they can speak to what the leasing of the project could look like. But if they, for some reason, can't find units or households at that income level, they have to be held available for households meeting that income. They couldn't be
And then
swapped out.
what would be I'm going to say penalty, it's not the right word, but what would be the alternative if they weren't able to fill them at the 60%? If they did fill them with other rental levels, what happens with their TIF financing?
Sure. So, Chair, it starts on page 25, so it would be a default in the agreement, and then starting on page 25 of your packet talks about the remedies of default,
Okay.
which could include, yes, the withholding of payments on that tax increment note until they're in compliance with the requirement of the housing.
Okay, cool. Thank you. That's what I had. So, yeah, absolutely. So, Sarah, make sure you have a little light on your microphone there, that the light comes on so we can hear you.
All right. And the reporting is just once a year?
Yeah.
Okay, that's all.
Cool. Go ahead.
Oh, I just have a follow-up, is talking about timing. Can you kind of go over the timing, I guess, of when you're looking at starting construction versus completion, lease up?
Patrick Ostrom, Managing Development Partner with Real Estate Equities. So right now, we're scheduled next Monday for final approval of City Council for the rezone. Assuming that passes, we'll be in a position to submit for building permits the following Monday, November 1st. So our construction drawings are pretty much done, just wrapping up the final terms of those. Depending on how long that takes, we're hoping to close by the end of the year. We're still working through some of our financing, which unfortunately, end of the year is always a little tricky, especially with banks and lenders with the holidays. But we're targeting to try to get done by the end of the year. It may slip into January, but we would expect to break ground January, early February, and about a 16-month construction schedule. And then we usually plan for about 6 months after opening, we fill the building. To Jeff's comment, the affordable units usually fill really quickly. We recently completed one in Brooklyn Center that was 127 units at that 60% AMI level, and we leased all those units in 6 weeks. So there's a very high demand for those type of products. And in addition to the 60, we have 52 units that are restricted below 80% AMI 2, which is typically a little bit below market. So we anticipate quite a bit of demand for those as well. So between construction and lease up, we're looking at about 22 months to be fully stable is what we're projecting.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you. That raises another question for me for Jeff. Metro Transit has just reconfigured their bus routes in that area. And this is more informational for people watching, because I'm not sure either. When you have this much housing coming into an area, is there a notification process to Met Council, who provides those types of services, to say, hey, in a year, you're going to have a much higher potential for ridership, especially with the housing mix we're going to have in that building?
Sure, Chair. So there's not a direct conversation about an individual project basis, project by project, but as part of our comprehensive plan, in terms of housing, our land use plan, our housing goals, and the amount of housing we're expecting in the kind of the phase 5, 10, and 20-year outlooks, that's all provided to Metro Transit so that they can plan for growth in the region and growth in Maplewood and accommodate for that in their transit planning. The second thing I would add is part of the Gold Line project, as part of any of the transitway projects, there's always kind of a secondary supporting bus network study that's done, and that's still underway on, when you add the Gold Line through the 94 corridor to connect St. Paul and the eastern suburbs, that can impact existing bus service. And so they study the bus system to determine what other route changes are necessary to kind of feed that line, as well as not duplicate the service that's on that line. So this is certainly, given this location, it's certainly within that study area for impacts on the secondary market of the Gold Line.
Okay, thank you. Any other thoughts, questions? Yeah, go ahead, Darrell.
Jeff, this one's, I just want to, is that rent restriction, or is that described in the declaration?
Let me find it.
And so I don't want to take up everybody's time. Maybe just something to note, to consider moving forward if it's not, maybe something to think about for the council. And it probably is in there. I may have missed it.
Sure. Chair and Commission, so the specific part looks like it's included on page 45 of your packet.
which is actually the declaration of restrictive covenant. And it's item 3A, which talks about qualifying tenants. And that's where it talks about the 60 units affordable at the 60% area median income. The reason the specific rents aren't listed in there is because that is adjusted every year. So, as the area median income is calculated and the rents are then calculated by the Metropolitan Council, those can go up over time as long as they're still at that 60% AMI level.
Okay, so they're tied to the income?
Correct.
Okay.
I don't have line numbers on there, but it says qualifying tenants means those persons and families who are determined from time to time by the developer to have a combined adjusted income that does not exceed 60% of the median income for the standard metropolitan statistical area, which includes Maplewood. It's about a third to a quarter of their way down that paragraph of 3A.
Okay. Okay, as long as they're in there, that's great. And then just one last question. As far as committed financing, is it fully committed, or where is like the financing on this?
Again, Patrick Ostrom, good evening. We are in the process of working through that. We have letters of intent from an investor and our lender as well, and that the process is usually you get that initial letter of intent, and then you work through the full underwriting, get a firm commitment, a little closer to closing, but we've done multiple projects with both the investor and lender on this one, similar to this structure as well, so we don't have any concern about getting that fully approved at the end of the day, so that'll come in, probably early December as well.
Okay.
And to add a little bit to your question about the restrictions, our investor on this is also a nonprofit affordable housing social impact investor. So they will have their additional requirements that year than the TIF and have income restrictions and the calculation for the rent on the 60% that will also be recorded as a restrictive covenant on the property. So there's the TIF and that component that both kind of require that similar financing.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, last call for questions or comments. Okay, seeing none, I will look for a motion to, and for our new members, I'm gonna step back a bit, just for our new members, so you're aware, this is an advisory motion to the council. If you say no, it doesn't mean they have to jump through other hoops, but we are an advisory commission, so whatever your thoughts are, please feel free to exercise them, making sure you're aware of that. I'll look for a motion to approve the tax increment financing agreement for the property at 2501 London Lane East.
I move.
We have a motion from Daryl. Look for a second.
A second.
I have a second from Sarah with a motion and a second. All of those in favor of approving the tax increment financing agreement signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And abstentions? Hearing, you're abstaining? Okay. The motion passes 3-1. So the commission will recommend approval of the financing agreement with the city council. With that, we can move on to the next item on our agenda. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us.
Thank you.
So, Chair and Commission, we wanted to give you an update. We're not requesting any action on this item tonight, but wanted to give you an update on a status update, really, on the single-family housing rehabilitation program that's been discussed. So, I won't go through all this in detail, but it's rooted initially probably long before 2019, but at least a recent conversation where this came up was in our 2019 strategic planning with HEDC and the Economic Development Authority over kind of the economic development priorities in Maplewood. And so housing was one that was high on that list, along with some of our small area neighborhood plans that we've put together. housing is one that was a very high priority in that strategic planning that was done. And then in our July 26th joint workshop with the EDA, there was a lot of discussion about the city's ARPA allocation, the American Rescue Plan Act dollars, that the one-time funding that the city will be receiving from the federal government, and the council's interest in using some of those funds, a portion of those funds, to support some of those housing programs and housing goals in Maplewood. And so then there was discussion around that single-family rehab program, and I think the two takeaways we had were one, a strong opportunity there to support some of our home ownership opportunities for affordable housing or for home ownership opportunities in Maplewood. And the second, not wanting to duplicate existing programs that exist from other agencies. And so particularly the county is looking holistically at their housing programs right now. But new housing acquisition and rehab is not something the county is actively participating in currently. So that was the one kind of program idea, program priority that we took away from that joint workshop and from the kind of the past couple years of discussion. I won't again go through all this, but there are a number of goals in our comprehensive plan that this type of program would support. Investing in our housing stock, partnering with other community organizations to implement improvements to our housing stock, promoting, certainly advocating for housing that will accommodate all racial and ethnic groups in the purchase, sale, and rental. So again, not just providing rental units in the community, but also those home ownership opportunities, providing housing that's environmentally sustainable and energy efficient, as well as just improving the overall housing opportunities for both renters and for homeowners. And this was rooted in a discussion around kind of the vacant home list that we maintain. So they're not concentrated anywhere in the city, but we kind of informally track our vacant homes through our code enforcement and services in Maplewood. We know that there are a number that are vacant for a variety of reasons. Some are estate properties, some are just in such bad condition they're not habitable, but there's a variety of reasons. But we know that there are a number of vacant single-family homes that are certainly causing issues because they're on our radar because of code enforcement. They're certainly causing issues with the neighbors and in the surrounding neighborhood. So as I say, the opportunities arise to kind of solve one problem with another, and that is the lack of home ownership opportunities for affordable units in Maplewood with some of these vacant properties that exist. So we always like to seek outside help and support and resources that are out there, and I was actually familiar with this program at the University of Minnesota called the Resilient Communities Project, because my past life in Minnetonka was actually the organization that partnered in their pilot year back in 2012 or so. But the University of Minnesota started a program where they partner with communities on on specific projects that are defined, the ideas are created by the local community itself. And they partner on those, and the projects have to be related to sustainability, equity, and resilience. And what it brings is the research and technical assistance of the entire University of Minnesota to the table to help support kind of that project idea. And they range from all over the place, anything from public works initiated projects to elections to housing programs to planning efforts. The projects are very vast, and I forget the exact number, but the number of schools and colleges within the university it touches is like greater than 20. So there are tons of different academic disciplines that are involved in this overall program. And we thought it was a good opportunity to bring some of those resources to help Maplewood shape this program and understand it better. So we submitted an application. It's a competitive process, and we submitted an application, and I'm happy to report we were accepted into the program for this academic year for our single-family rehab program. So the goal of our partnership with the university will be to study this single-family rehabilitation program. There's probably two components to it, or two phases of the study. And the first being a background research, which, university graduate students are really good at this, which is let's go look at the models for these types of programs, not only here in the metro in the state of Minnesota, but across the country on let's not reinvent the wheel on how these programs, we know they exist. So let's study the, best practices and recommendations and outcomes from some of the existing programs that exist. And the second will likely be a course in the Humphrey School of Public Affairs. They have a dedicated housing program for graduate students at the Humphrey School. And it's likely going to be one of their capstone projects. So that'd be for their second year grad students as kind of their culminative project of their studies. Small group, usually 3 to 6 students that are dedicated throughout the entire semester to one project. So this would be in the spring, where they would really take some of that background research of it and add in kind of the development of the program ideas, the program criteria, and start to kind of flesh out the program. They wouldn't give us the fully baked program and just say adopt this, but it starts the kind of the legwork on how we could build this program out in Maplewood successfully to meet the goals we've established, both our overarching goals in the comp plan, but then some of the specific strategies that have been articulated by the EDA and HEDC going through this. So these are just the preliminary questions we have put out there for the students. Like I said, what are the models for similar programs elsewhere? What are the best practices and recommendations for the programs, the policies, the guidelines, and requirements? Certainly, we're interested in understanding more of the financing for the long-term financing for this. The ARPA is really a one-time allocation, but we're interested in studying some of those longer-term financing models, and then certainly identifying who some of the potential partners could be to support the project in Maplewood. So this was really just to give you an update that's where we're heading with it. We have not matched with the specific students or professor yet, so I don't have the team, but it's very likely that they will want to engage with the community in this process, and talking to likely EDA, the HEDC members, community groups, owners, potential tenants, whoever is interested in having the conversation. They're going to want to embed themselves in Maplewood to understand our community, to make their recommendations be reflected to what we think would be successful here. So certainly more to come as we match with the course and the professors and know who's going to be working on it. But since we're here tonight, we just wanted to give you an update that this is the progress we've made on actually establishing that program to support the acquisition and rehab of single-family homes in Maplewood. So happy to take any questions you may have or any feedback you have as we go through this process. Now's a good time to relay that to us so we can relay that on to the university.
Okay, commissioners, any questions or comments for Jeff or on the program in general?
Just sounds like a really cool program. Nice work finding that. So that should be really interesting to see what they come up with.
Jeff, you said this isn't yet set to start anytime soon.
Wow, make sure you hit your mic. There's right there, you got it.
There we go. What is the time frame for when this actually starts?
It'll be a spring semester project for the university, so starting in, I think that's late January is when it'll start. And it varies. Sometimes these projects are like part of a course, so it's one part of the semester, but this, because it's likely going to be this cohort, it's going to be the entire semester and kind of a deep dive on it. So we're looking at the January through May time period. And there will be obviously deliverables at the end of that. And there's also traditionally an in-person presentation from the students to the organization about kind of the final deliverables on it. And we would expect that at the end of May.
Okay.
Jeff, is there sort of a timeline to this process? I realize it's earlier. Is that all dependent on sort of this program?
Yeah, so there's kind of two parallel things happening. One is this, and this partnership. The second is we're talking to the county, Ramsey County, as I think we've talked about. They're establishing their Housing and Redevelopment Authority levy for next year, for 2022. I talked a little bit that they're really starting to look at all of their programming in housing and economic development. And one alignment that I see so far is the county is interested in potentially doing a program on acquiring tax forfeited properties for something similar. And so they've kind of got that idea along our idea of the vacant house properties. They have funding on obviously being provided by the HRA levy. So I think we're looking for, the opportunity to merge these goals and to kind of create a partnership with the county. Because we're not built, frankly, to administer a program like this. We don't have staff that are going out and acquiring properties and rehabbing, contracting with people to rehab them. And so I think we're looking for those partners and some of the funding sources that can come from the county to help align them. So unfortunately, it's they're still really working through their program details at the county on this, on all of their programs, but this is kind of the less thought out of all of them. And so the county is well aware that we want to do this. We've put it in front of them. We're just waiting to hear more about where their program's heading on their piece so that we can align some of our project administration.
And Jeff, does the county have sort of a timeline that they're looking to settle some of their housing considerations on?
They have told us by the end of this year they expect to have a lot of these programs hashed out. I'm not confident that's going to happen because we're 2 months away, but but that's what they've told us.
But this isn't a dream someday thing. This is
No.
actively being pursued and hashed out. So even if it goes over, we're still 4 months maybe. We're into the middle of next year before we'd have the recommendations from the university anyway.
Yes, and the county has dedicated $27 million of their ARPA funds, which is a substantial part of their ARPA contribution, to housing in Ramsey County. And so I think it's $20 million in the first year and $7 million in the next, I believe that's what it is. And so that's aside from the HRA levy dollars, which is like $11 million per year starting in kind of mid next year. So they've front-ended a lot of this funding source now, and that money is available now. They just need to figure out the program criteria, how they're going to allocate it and get it out into the communities. So, and then that, of course, because just like our ARPA contribution, our ARPA funding comes with deadlines that it has to be committed by 2024, committed and spent by 2024. So there are deadlines on the spending of our contribution as well as the county's dollars.
Do we have contingency plans if their funding were to be substantially less or worse?
We sure hope we don't have to take a go-it-alone approach. I think we're going to be more effective if we find the funding partnership from the county. But I think the project could stand on its own in Maplewood. I mean, I think the council's initial allocations, we're talking dollar amounts that we would be able to do projects in Maplewood in the single-family rehab. We just don't know how sustainable over time it would be if there's not a kind of ongoing funding source from the HRA levy from the county.
Right. The results will be reflected by the amount invested in the project, right?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Any other questions on the single-family housing rehabilitation program? All right. Oh, go ahead. Did you have a question, Bob?
Yeah, go.
Oh, yeah. Can you go back to the beginning of your presentation or slide? I just want to have a deeper understanding of what constitute the program to be called like a rehab program. What makes it a rehab program and why is it called that? Yeah.
I think the idea is that it's it's more robust than that. It's not just, that's probably too general of a term, because a rehab program to me could just be providing grant or, low interest loans or deferred loans or some sort of funding for existing homeowners to rehab. I think the program idea we've had is it's an acquisition of single family homes, a rehabilitation, and then the resale of those homes is really the full extent of the program we're looking at.
Okay.
Should have clarified that.
Okay. Makes sense.
And then if I could just ask one question, I guess when we start meeting with the students, I'm guessing the one question they're going to ask, one of them is, who can we talk to? And so I just want to gauge the interest of this board on, engaging with the students to have a conversation about, so they can understand this issue and what the city's goals are. So it's an ask of whether you'd want to participate in that or not.
So what I would say is more than welcome to have us join us in our meetings and have conversations there. And above and beyond that, on an individual level, I would be happy to meet with and have conversations with the students too. If other commissioners are willing to talk individually too, that'd be, just probably Jeff, you'd want to know, right?
Yeah, I totally agree on whatever levels needed, absolutely.
Great.
Okay. All right, well, that was a discussion, so no action needed from us on that. So we can move on to our last item of new business, which is the 2021 Business Awards.
Yeah, so last year, every year as part of the State of the City event, HEDC has chosen the awards for our business community. Last year was unique on many fronts, but the decision last year was the State of the City was virtual. It was actually a really successful event, really high participation and really strong positive feedback. But we recognize the entire business community, recognizing kind of everyone stepped up and had their hardships and victories and challenges responding to the pandemic. So we really it was really to support all of our business community at that event. But I think for this year's event, we're getting back to a more similar program to what we've done in years past, and that's included awarding our business community, or recognizing our business community through the allocation of these, what we've had in the past is these 3 award categories: the entrepreneurship, the environmental sustainability award, and then the community contribution award. So I think the event's not scheduled yet. It's usually in the January-ish timeframe, the State of the City event, and there's certainly other components to it. But we just wanted to bring the awards categories back to you, confirm that these are aligned with the types of businesses we should be recognizing. I think the other thing, if there's any sort of thoughts or input on the solicitation process, I know we have had, I will tell you, I think, and I've only been here a couple of years, but the most success we had in this is when we identify the businesses that we know and either kind of approach them and say, we want to nominate you, or suggest that they nominate themselves. Like, we'll get the word out to the business community. You may see some nominations, but the best way to recognize our business community and to get quality nominations is to identify the businesses that are doing these things well and kind of reach out for those nominations. So that doesn't mean we can only pick them from the businesses we know, but I think the ones we've chosen in the years past have been rooted in our knowledge of what these businesses are doing in our community. And then lastly, I think it's traditionally been just a subcommittee, a smaller number than a quorum, just to meet. We can do it online or virtually, or just to actually pick, if there are more than one nominee, to pick the award winner before that date. So just want to confirm that we still want to do that same process for this year's awards. And if you have any changes you want to make to the categories or the process, we're happy to discuss those tonight before we start pushing this out there for seeking nominations.
So, Jeff, if we were to propose changes, whether it's categories or that, what type of a timeline would you need to know, like, end of the meeting?
It wouldn't have to be end of the meeting, probably by the end of very first part of November. I think we're going to want to get the message out about these categories. So if there are changes, we'd want to do it in the next week or two.
Right. So, Daryl, you've been through the process, but for Sarah and Bao, the categories we've been running for a number of years. If you think of something that I don't know if I would want to say add, because we don't want to make it, we don't want to make it an entire, awards night for 3 hours going through awards. But if there is a category you think would be better than one of the 3, maybe to replace it or that, I still will say with the November timeline, we probably want to at least discuss it here tonight. If we can't address it tonight, if you need to think about it for next year, because you're on the commission, and if you've got some ideas on how we can recognize businesses within Maplewood, absolutely, let's have that conversation. To Jeff's comments, I would say traditionally we've normally had, I'll be polite and say, a small number of nominations, sometimes very small. Jeff, I still think it would be nice if we can grow this to where the business community supports itself in those nominations and that. Because of the number of nominations we've had, and I don't know if anyone ever has, but I'll say this, on the record, I'm fully in support of self-nomination. If someone says, hey, I did something really cool this year, I want the city to know about it, yeah, please do. But as a business community, if you've got, a neighboring business or a vendor or a customer of yours that's a business in Maplewood, please look at these categories and let us know who do you think needs a little extra nod to support them? Because even with the small number of nominations we've had, we have had no lack of very worthy businesses for these awards over the past, I'm going to say almost 5 years, I think, that we've been doing this program. So there's a lot of you out there. We don't know who you all are, but please let us know. If we don't know, let us know, because we do. We have a lot of businesses very worthy of any of these recognitions. So yeah, I'd say that's a call for, let's still put it out there. Let's try to get the community to support themselves, but we're also, all of us are engaged with, whether it's businesses we work at or patronize, or, we know through some other means, we will make sure that the nominees and the winners in January-ish, whatever it is, like I said, we have a big pool to pull from, so we'll be good.
Can I ask, what is the communication channels that we're using to engage with our business community? Like, how are we reaching out to them?
Yeah, really good question. So the primary one we probably use for the business community is an email list we have, and that's developed from our business council as well as our business outreach efforts that we do. So, every year we do a visit to 20-ish businesses in Maplewood, and we kind of develop a database of people we've met with out of there that we have kind of a listserv for that we can get the message out to. That's the primary one. Certainly we have the Maplewood Living, and it goes to every address in Maplewood, but how engaged the business community isn't reading that, we don't know. Or our other communication platforms like social media. Again, I don't know how, it's certainly out there for the entire community to see, but it's not specifically targeted to businesses. That's really the kind of the email list that we have through our business outreach programs.
So Jeff, that brings up a question for me. I haven't heard anything. How's the business council been active, inactive for the last 2 years?
Been pretty inactive.
Okay.
I think we had 1 or 2 virtual events, and they just were not well attended.
Okay.
Very, very small attendance. I mean, we're talking like 2 people at some of them. So we didn't get really strong engagement on the online platform for those events.
But that is still a group. We still have their contact information. So it may be definitely worthwhile to get an email out to them and say, hey, please nominate, other council members and stuff like that too. So,
Absolutely.
Cool. Because I know from what we call in our business Zoom fatigue, they may really want to come to a breakfast in January and see their peers and their friends. Okay. Any other thoughts or comments on?
How does the nomination process work?
So that's what our next step is what we'll do is we're going to pick from ourselves, and this could be one of those, oh, you weren't here, so we assigned you to that committee. If you're interested in sitting on, and we call it a committee, but there's 6 of us. Pre-pandemic, there were, I think, 2 of us and Mike Martin sitting at a table up in the development conference room, whatever you guys call that room, going through the nominations and talking through them. We can do that via Teams, Zoom, whatever the online is. I haven't been on that subgroup all the time. It could have been emails, whatever it is. We share our thoughts and go, wow, I think this business just knocked it out of the park with everything they've done for, I'll call out a couple that stick out in my head. The Dog House, for all they do for the community, as well as their engagement with the city for the Lighted Up Maplewood events back in those days when we could do things in person. So 2 or 3 of us get together, talk about, go through the nominees, and then Jeff, I think in 1 or 2 years, if there is a meeting of our group before January, we have, as the full group, voted on those. If we haven't met, then I'm perfectly comfortable with that subcommittee making those calls on who the winners are for those awards.
Okay. So you're saying we get to pick, or the community gets a voice in this?
The community's voice is to give us the nominees,
Okay.
and then we will work with those nominees and go through and vet out who we think is appropriate in the criteria we have in front of us,
Sure.
who's an appropriate award recipient.
Sure. And then does this award go out into, as part of, or does it go into the Maplewood Living?
It has.
Okay, as
Yep.
well, to tell community. Okay.
Yep. And to be honest, the business breakfast, or the state of the city, is not just a business breakfast. It's been a breakfast. I think we changed it up just pre-pandemic. But it is the state of the city. This is not just business, but it's an opportunity for that business to be highlighted in the state of Maplewood. How is Maplewood doing? And here are 3 examples of how our business partners in this city, our businesses are, exemplary at whatever the category is that they've gotten an award at. So they'll be in the Maplewood Living. Whoever attends that event or watches it virtually or watches the recording on the rebroadcast will be made aware. And they get plaques, so if they put them up in their lobby or, put something on their website about it, hey, great. I'd love to see them do that.
I think in the past couple of years, our communications department has also done videos about just highlighting the business, and we spread those out on our the channels that we have as well. They've done, and our communications department does some really good job with videos. So there's some pretty cool videos about the businesses that have won. So,
Jeff, can I get the name of who's in our business communication team?
oh sure,
Or
internally here at the city,
how can I look it up online on the Maplewood page?
I can send it to you.
Okay,
I'll send it out to the whole group.
Yeah.
okay, thank you.
Yeah, and you can, Maplewood has a YouTube channel, and you can go onto the YouTube channel, and the awards or the State of the City meetings have been recorded, I want to say for 3 or 4 years. So you can look back at those, and then the highlight videos. So for each award recipient, the city has done a feature video on those award recipients about the criteria, how they met them, a little bit for those businesses to talk about themselves. So, yeah, my YouTube channel has a favorites for all of those. Any other thoughts or discussion? So who would like to volunteer to be on that to help decide who's worthy of those awards?
Volunteer.
Cool, because I was going to say, I'd love to see some new voices on that. So, so Sarah and Bao, Daryl, you want to participate?
I did have the opportunity 1 year, so maybe we'll check with the 2 people missing. If we certainly need me or we need more participation, I'm more than happy to, but I'd like to give them an opportunity first.
Okay. So, and then Jeff, similar to Daryl's position, if, I would say if one of our, I don't want to call Joy one of our senior members, but she's a longstanding member of the group. If we at least have one person who's gone through the process before. So depending on whether Joy or Constance show interest, whether it's Daryl or Joy or myself, to have someone who's been on it before. And then I'll let you make the call who you want to throw on from the remainders.
Sounds good.
Cool, thank you. All right. So with that, that takes us to the end of new business. Going on to unfinished business, I see nothing on the agenda. Visitor presentations. Surprise, surprise, after the pandemic, we don't have a long line of people going, oh, I've been waiting 2 years to speak to you, so no visitor presentations. No commission presentations, so Jeff, back to you for staff presentations.
So I think I have 4 quick updates on development. I think the first one we talked about at the joint workshop with the EDA, but just giving an update on the North End Vision Plan implementation is that we are working on the less exciting but just as important piece of it, which is the zoning ordinance. So this is the regulatory tool that we use when new development happens to ensure that it's consistent in its design and use with our North End Vision Plan. So it's much more specific than the Vision Plan itself. So that ordinance has been drafted. It was actually at the Planning Commission, let's see, what day is it? Tuesday night this week for their recommendation, and we'll be taking it to the council probably in either November or December for their adoption of that ordinance. And that then, as I said, kind of puts this is the, we certainly have our carrot tools, but this is the stick tool, which requires new development to be built and designed consistent with the vision plan. I will give you maybe it's a teaser. It probably is a teaser. We have been actively working with Birch Run Station, the shopping center to the west of the mall. It was in receivership. The lender had essentially foreclosed on the property. They had defaulted on their loan to the bank, and so they had gone back to the lender. They went through a competitive RFP process for offers, and there is a finalist that's now been selected, and we've talked to them and met with them, and they expect to, if things work out, be closing on that property probably by the end of the year, and then they are interested, I will just say, in investment in the property. They are not just going to buy the property and just keep it as it is. They recognize the need for substantial investment in that site, both in the existing tenants in the existing building, but also positioning it for long-term redevelopment and nearer-term redevelopment. So there's no specifics on it yet, but they are well aware of our vision plan, and we'll be certainly continuing the conversations with them about investment in that property to drive some of the vision goals forward. The second project to update you on is the American Cooperative on Lake Phalen. This is just south of the shores of Lake Phalen on East Shore Drive. The council approved this project at their last meeting. It's a 60-unit senior cooperative. It's so a very unique model. It's actually the first cooperative we'll have in Maplewood. So it's a very unique ownership model. It is age restricted for 62 plus. And as I said, there's 60 new units in that building. So they, because it's essentially a owner-occupied for sale version, they have to do some pre-sales. So this is not, the London Lane project you can see can start construction pretty quickly, but a for sale market's going to take some pre-sales before they can actually break ground. So, but know that project's been approved. They're excited to move forward with it, and you'll probably see some marketing materials out in our city newsletter about those units become available for sale. It didn't require any. They weren't requesting any city assistance. It was just really the land use zoning actions that the council approved for that project, because it was also consistent with our comp plan. Scooter's Coffee. I don't know if you're familiar. If you're from the Nebraska area, you've maybe seen Scooter's Coffee. I think they're out of Nebraska. Upper Midwest coffee chain. They're entering the Twin Cities market, and they will have 2 new locations in Maplewood. One at 2730 Stillwater. That's in like the Nolan's grocery store kind of parking lot right on the corner. And the second one is land we own. Some land, it's at, where is that? It's right by Menards, right off of Highway 61. There's some remnant land out there that we own from the road reconfiguration. They're taking the advantage of having good access from the highway to put in a drive-through parking lot. They're like the Caribou Coffee cabins, if you've seen them. They're like 600 square feet. There's really no dine-in facilities. It's really just a drive-up coffee shop. So first in the market. So
Can I ask some questions on that one before
Yeah.
we move on?
yeah.
So the Stillwater location, is that taking the place of the, was it a shredding company? Okay. Same building or new tear down?
Total new build, yeah.
Total new?
Scrape
Okay.
and new build.
And then the Maplewood Drive, is this the same property that the service station was
Yes.
on at one point?
Yes.
I'm presuming we've looked at all of the traffic implications on that weird spot?
Yeah, not in a ton of detail yet, but yeah, we're certainly aware that it's a wonky access into the site. And
For their sake, hopefully, they really mess up traffic and they get a lot of business. For our sake, we find a good balance, I hope.
for sure.
It's not Chick-fil-A, which
No.
for some reason always
Yeah.
goes 2 blocks no matter where you put them.
You know, and I think Canes is the same way. So
Yeah.
we're going to have just
Okay, cool. Just want to check on that.
Yeah. And then last update is on the pond. I know this, I think I've updated you on this every meeting because there's continuous progress. This is the Ramsey County-owned properties down in South Maplewood, the Ponds Golf Course, as well as land adjacent to the correctional facility. We've really wrapped up that community engagement process and development of the development scenarios for both of those sites. The ponds, the Ramsey County did close the ponds at the end of September. I think there are signs up and letting people know that the golf course is permanently closed. The county did go out with what they call the request for development interest, and that is essentially to get developers to have submissions on whether they are interested in developing either of these properties. So I think that deadline was a couple weeks ago. My understanding is they have 3 submissions for the south property and no interest submissions from the site A on this map. And the county has said they are looking at those 3 submissions and will be reviewing them and analyzing them and maybe bringing one or more of them to the county board for discussion, is what they've told us. So as with every time we bring this up, stay tuned. There's definitely more to come on this, but we know it's been in the spotlight for the residents down in South Maplewood of those properties. So that's what we know so far.
Are those submissions or the people of interest, is that available on the county's website for people to look into if they're interested?
It is not, because it's an RFP process, it's private data.
Until they go before the county?
Correct.
Then they would need to be public to be on the agenda?
Correct. I think once they've selected a preferred, or they've selected the preferred option, whatever it is, then it becomes public.
Okay, cool.
So I think that's all I have other slides in here if there were questions, but I think those were the 4 development projects I wanted to highlight. But I'm happy to answer any other questions of happenings around town in terms of development or housing or anything else.
Any other questions? Well, you showed me the next slide,
I'm
so.
curious too.
And I just was going to comment, I actually rode the Bruce Vento Trail. I bicycled it a few weeks ago, and just odd question since this is here. That's actually not too far away from the development you were talking about, the senior cooperative. Could actually benefit from that as well, so, cool.
Absolutely.
But, Bao, did you have a question on that?
No, that's what I was going to say too, because it cuts right through.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a station right at where the Bento Trail crosses Frost Avenue.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. I have nothing more. Any other thoughts or questions? All right. Seeing that, we have come to the end of our agenda, and we will close the meeting at 7:27. We are adjourned.